Okie dokie. We got sound. We got video. I think we're good to go. And let the games begin. Greetings and salutations, friends. Welcome to another wonderful hobby stream. I am coming to you live from the Nerd Bunker. We are, let's see, it's a rainy, gross day here in Rhode Island. Been real stormy, but we're here. We're doing it live. As I have weekend plans for my daughter's birthday, we are coming a little early this week, so we're going to be doing our hobby stream on Thursday tonight. The video will be available on my YouTube channel as per usual. Friday night it will be released around 9 p.m. as usual. So for those that miss the stream here tonight, you know where you can find it. And the YouTube channel, again, for those that are not familiar, we'll throw it up across the bottom of youtube.com/users/Wes Odinson. That's WESODINSON. You can find me on all my socials there as well, including Twitter and Instagram. So I hope everyone had a good week up until this point. I know it's not quite done, but it's getting there. Certainly winding down for most folks, I think. I hope everyone's looking forward to a good weekend as well. I know I am. Myself and the rest of the fam are going up to New Hampshire for the weekend, which is going to be a good time. It's my daughter's second birthday tomorrow, which is exciting. And so myself, my daughter, my wife, we're going up, and I think her dad, my wife's dad, that is going to be joining us at some point up there, along with possibly a couple other friends, and we're just going to be kind of hanging out. Should be a nice low key kind of thing. I heard rumors that we're going to Storyland, which I've never been to, but hopefully the Munchkin will enjoy herself there. Anyway, so that's my plans. I hope you guys have something equally interesting to look forward to. And yeah, so I am a little out of sorts at the moment. I had I don't know, just I was not prepared at all. I knew today was coming. I knew I was going to be streaming. And I got home from work, was utterly exhausted. My daughter went down for a nap, and then shortly after, so did I. And then I woke up at about, 6 o'clock-ish, and had about 45 minutes to try and scramble to get everything together, including my poor wife having to cook dinner as well. So I was trying to wrangle the kiddo while she was cooking, and then had to scarf down some food because I hadn't eaten since 10 o'clock this morning. So anyway, I was a little late for where I wanted to be tonight, but yeah. So I don't, or I should say I didn't have a ton prepared, but fortunately I have a few things kind of sitting off in the wing that are quick and easy for me to grab and get started on. So why don't we jump down to the desk and we'll take a look at one of those things right now. Alrighty. So I happen to have here a couple of new recruits for my zombie horde. These guys have all been zenithal primed. Zenithal priming is essentially, for those that aren't familiar, they're all primed black, and then they're given a prime from probably about this angle, give or take, in a gray, and then from a much steeper top down sort of angle with white. And what this helps to do is better accentuate and simulate light and shadow. So you get more sort of like, I guess, blended under shading. These guys in particular, I already painted up. I've been talking about them on the stream for a couple of days, or a couple of episodes, I should say. And basically, I'm using these zombies as sort of like an interesting experiment of just sort of exploring flesh tones. Now, mostly I mean like different ways of painting flesh tones. Mostly, again, meaning like technique-wise. And so I'm trying some new things, some new colors that I might not have previously tried, or some of them are colors I have used, but I'm using them in a slightly different way. That being said, I've already done 4, which I've sort of done a little bit over time. So this was, I actually painted him on the stream, and of course my camera's going to be a little fussy about zooming in and you know, focusing and stuff. But anyway, so this fella here, I don't remember what episode it was, but it was pretty early on, and I had him just kind of laying about and decided I was going to paint him up real quick as sort of like a rough test of sort of color scheme. And so this was number 1. And number 2 was this guy right here. So very similar in approach and color. I got a little bit more detailed on this guy, I think, and ultimately I think he is an improvement. It's very difficult to see because this camera does not like to zoom in, but with him I experimented a little bit with worn leather on his pants, trying some new techniques out there. So I'm just kind of using, like I said, these guys as an example to try and grow a little bit as a painter. This guy here is, as of yet, unfinished. I still have not finished his skin. Maybe I'll work on him a little bit tonight, but I'm not overly concerned. I'll sort of get to him at some point. But then there was this guy here, and he is like finished. And he was sort of my proof of concept, I suppose, where I kind of like took him all the way in terms of how I was going about doing this particular technique. And I personally, I'm rather pleased with how he came out. I'm rather happy with him. So many of them are going to be sort of along this line, but I'm going to change up colors here and there. I don't want them all to look uniform across the zombie horde because, you know, human beings are not cookie cutter images of one another. And the other thing too is, since they're zombies, obviously they are no longer alive, and so they have begun in some fashion to decay. I assume older zombies will probably be in a more advanced state of said decay than some of their fresher, younger brethren. So that being said, I want to try and reflect that throughout the horde by having, like, you know, a few guys that are maybe in, you know, their skin has, instead of just being sort of like a pale human flesh type color, you know, the idea will be to try and go for like more greens or more browns or something like that. I have in the past painted models that were, you know, not sort of just a Caucasian flesh tone. And I enjoyed the way that they came out, and I would like to experiment with that more. My challenge is going to be trying to translate that into zombie as well. So, you know, the sort of desaturated nature of the skin, where it's kind of dried out and husky, It's just going to require slightly different colors. So that's where a lot of the like experimenting is going to come into play. Like how do I apply some of these different techniques to, you know, different skin tones, colors, things like that. So, but that's not specifically my plan for tonight. Tonight I'm going to be working on following a similar technique to what I did with these guys, and I'll be walking through it as I sort of, I don't know, try and get through it. So, as I said sort of earlier at the top, I did appreciate these guys with zenithal highlighting or priming, using Stynal Res primer in black, gray, and white. And then I went ahead and gave these guys each a light wash in Nuln Oil here, which is just like a dark, you know, black, gray, brownish wash. So I used that, just a very thin coat to bring back any definition lost in the white priming stage. And then I took a dry brush of, I used a cold white, which I have no idea. It's from Reaper. I have no idea what the name of the color is, but it's kind of a like an icy blue color. Excuse me. So I used this and just gave them a quick dry brush top down. Again, trying to catch the highest highlights and the highest points, bring some brightness and definition back to those. Oh, excuse me. Apparently I have some dinner caught in my throat. Anyway, sorry about that. Yeah, so I dry brushed those guys. Again, as I was saying, like from all my brush strokes went from top down, so they only caught the top portion on the way down, and the top upper surfaces and so forth. Once again, trying to simulate light. So everything has been trying to replicate that light and shadow. Now, the way I'm going to be painting these guys is a little bit different from the way that I paint most of my other stuff, and quite frankly, I really enjoy doing it this way. At least on the couple of zombies that I've done this way so far. And I've attempted stuff like this in the past, but it was models that I, quite frankly, cared a little bit more about. And as a result, I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to screw them up, essentially. But with these guys, the little zombies, they're a dime a dozen. And, you know, if I have a couple in the bunch that look like crap, like, nobody's really going to notice, and I'm certainly not going to care. But it's a good opportunity to try a new technique. So in this case, I am going to be essentially using nothing but GW shades, which are like washes, inks, that kind of thing, are really good. Very thin down glazes and so forth are really good for using over this type of pre-shading. And what that does is it applies a very thin translucent layer of your pigment and your paint over the surface that essentially tints whatever the surface is that color. Now, because you've already gone through the effort of shading it like this, the pre-shading, all of that work hopefully will show through the upper layers, so you'll still get that light and shadow. Like you can see on, I guess, this guy right here on his skin, you can see on the top it's a lot lighter, and then from underneath it's very shadowed, and that's because of that pre-shading showing through. And he just has a couple of different colored washes on his skin to sort of get to that point. So I guess without any further ado, let's get cracking there. And this has been sort of my workhorse brush for this particular one. I dug this out of whatever archive I had it lying in. And this is an old Citadel large brush. This is, I don't know how old this brush is. I don't even know if I had ever used it previous to this, but it was a nice middle ground. It was a little bit, the tip was a little bit smaller and finer than this like wash brush from the same range. And then the current large brushes from GW are like, they're just big and they're just not, they don't come to a fine point like this one does. Which, I mean, admittedly is not the finest, sharpest of points, but that's fine. It's good enough for what I need it for. Let's put it that way. So, to start off, we're going to try and hit the largest sort of surface areas on the model first, which in this case is going to be largely the skin, as these dudes are both pretty shirtless from the looks of it. So yeah, we're starting there. So this is going to be done in 2 layers. We're going to be doing first a layer of Reichland Flesh Shade, and then over that we're going to be doing a layer of Athonian Camo Shade, which is like a dark olive green, which is going to bring in some of that rotty sort of skin tone. The flesh tone is there to give them, you know, over the white. Good night, bud. The flesh tone is there over the white. It's going to give it like a little bit of that sort of like pinky, reddy, brownish, like sort of Caucasian flesh tony appearance. So we'll take a look at that first. You know what? We'll do this guy first, just because. Okay, so we're just going to give this a decent wash. We're not trying to be super heavy-handed with this. In fact, we don't really want it pooling much at all. Again, we're using this kind of like an ink or a glaze, just kind of washed over the surface, which will, as I said, tint the particularly the white and the gray from the undershading. And if we get a little bit where we don't want it, that's not the end of the world. We can kind of go back and lift some of that off with a damp brush while it's still wet. But right now we're just kind of concerned with getting good coverage, even coverage. We don't want, like I said, we don't want any pooling or anything like that. So I'm going to come back in and just pull a little back up again with just a damp brush. A little bit on the top of his head here. Which I think is sort of a combination of skull cap and hair and skin. Okay. Oh, we got to get the inside of his hand. Okay. On the top of his head and the tops of his shoulders, I'm just kind of going back in and lifting a little bit off the top, just so it's a little brighter up on the top where the sort of highest highlight points are going to be. Making sure that we're not pooling, making sure that everything looks relatively even, which it does. Okay. So that guy's done. We're going to repeat that same step on this other fellow. We're going to dip into our flesh shade here. Now this guy has this big wound in his gut where his intestines are kind of hanging out. So we're basically going to kind of try and paint around it as best we can. If I get a little bit in there, it's not going to be the end of the world, but I certainly don't want to make it a point of getting that all up in there. I'm going to be going in with some other colors later, specifically a red and a purple wash to get those areas and you know, bring those to unlife. Lift some of that off the handle. We got some on his shirt sleeve here. So we're going to try and lift that off. Again, it's not the end of the world if we get a little mixing of some of these, but we want to try and keep those areas as clear as possible, because we are going to be using other transparent colors over those. And a little bit of sort of color variation is certainly not a bad thing. And in fact, we're going to be sort of sloppily mixing and applying some of these in certain areas a little bit later on. But for the time being, especially in like the lighter, delicate areas like this, we want to try and preserve what we can. Okay, so that is looking pretty done. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've done so far. This is just the one coat. We'll take this guy who is not 100% dry, but he's getting there. So maybe while I'm sitting here blabbing, we'll finish drying. You can see still very dark and shadowed here. He's got a little bit of brush out here, a little bit of a white spot on the top of his belly and on his pectoral here, and you can see that his ribs are a little bit better defined than the rest of him. Maybe you can see, there we go. And a lot of that is partly due to the dry brush. The airbrush, based on the sort of the shape of the model, left a lot of that in sort of like extreme shadow, and I wanted to bring like a little bit of it out. Cooling under his arm here. Just going to try and pull that out. All right. But you can see, like on his back here, how it's taken on a very pale, peachy sort of like general tone to it, which is what we're going for in this particular case with these guys. You know, they're not overly flush because they are very much dead. So a lot of the blood flow is no longer there. So yeah. So anyway, now we are going to grab our previously mentioned Athonian camo shade, and this is, oh, hello, Freya. Looks like we have a puppy cameo here, potentially. You can see a tail wagging in the bottom corner there. Okay, so this dark green wash, guys, I found my dinner plate, apparently. Let's see if I can get that somewhere suitably off camera that is out of their greedy range. There. You over here. There we go. All right. Problem solved. Anyway, where was I? Right, Athonian camo shade. So, this is going to bring in a lot of the green tones to our skin. And again, this is like a green-brown, like an olive drab kind of color. And the idea here is it's still, again, desaturated. We don't want like a bright, vibrant green, although I may put that in on some just to sort of like play that up and see how that looks. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of put this on over the top of that flesh tone, and when the two mix, because there's the reddish tones in that flesh shade, and then you have the greens in this one, and the two, when they mingle, they give you sort of you know, they in a sense almost cancel each other out, but they basically make like a brown. So you've got like an extra browny green, almost like, I've heard it described as like a baby poop green color. And as a father, I can attest that is fairly accurate. But anyway, so we are going to apply this coat over the top. And the two of these, like I said, they're going to mix and do some interesting things. We'll take a look. Bring our point back to our brush here. Get some specific areas. This guy's face is largely skull, but he does have some fleshy areas sort of on the back of his head. And on the top, it looks like, too. It looks like he had the vast majority of his face ripped off. I don't know what killed him. I'd rather not find out, because it looks unpleasant. All right. A little bit here. Now I'll be coming back in towards the skull with another color in a little bit. Oh, I still actually need that green for the other guy. Let's see. Check on his skin. Yep. Looks like we can safely apply. And then throw a layer of this green over the top. This guy's got a little bit more of his face intact. Now, once again, we are going to try and avoid that big open wound in his belly. I'm going to try and preserve those white and gray sort of values and undershades as best we can for the next step. And I think because I don't have anything wet there, I will go to that next while his skin dries. And if there's a little bit of intermingling between the green and some of the red and purple, that'll be okay, because it'll just kind of make it look like bruised flesh. Okay, so this guy, this step is done. Now, this guy also looks like his bottom jaw is being held on by a piece of cloth. If you know those like old-timey pictures of like somebody with like a toothache and they have like a handkerchief tied around their head, that's basically what this guy's got going on. So I'm just trying to pull some of the green off of the cloth area so that we can keep that sort of a lighter color, which will make going back a little bit easier to differentiate that. We're going to actually just tap in a little bit more green right next to that bandana to, again, separation between the two. Okay. Now, we're going to jump over to Caribird Crimson. And this is like a nice red wash. Crimson, as the name would imply. We're going to drop this in on the intestinal area here. Big gaping belly wound that he has. Again, we're not looking to drown it. Just looking for some nice coverage. Okay. And then we're going to just kind of mix that with a little bit of the green surrounding it. So this is doubly acting to pull some of the pooling and clean up the guts a little bit, but it's also sort of mixing and blending and bleeding that reddish color around the big belly wounds. So it just looks like torn, irritated skin. At least that's kind of the idea. All right, what else can I work on for this guy right now? He's got boots, like knee-high boots. I'm going to go ahead and say I want those black, and I'm going to go for the same kind of leather pants that I've been doing on these guys. So we're going to pull out these two colors here. So starting with the pants, we're going to do Seraphim Sepia. And I'm starting with this one first because it's a lighter color. So theoretically, the black will help to mask it a little bit if I get a little bit where I don't want it. So this technique with the pants is my attempt at sort of copying and imitating a technique that Vince Venturella shared through his hobby cheating series. That's the word I'm looking for. His hobby cheating series of videos on his YouTube channel. I will throw a link up to it in the description once this is over. But basically, I am doing my best with the limited ability and paints, as I don't have 100% of the paints that he has. And as he usually points out, the exact colors in the recipe don't so much matter. It's just, you know, you don't need the right brand or anything. You just need to have, like, sort of the right types of colors. And then you can kind of do whatever it is that you're trying to do. So we're going to get this guy's pants also. And it looks like this guy has very similar boots. But maybe I'll do this guy's boots in like a dark brown. We don't want them to be identical. We just want them to be sort of loosely affiliated. So we're actually going to be doing this particular color. We're going to be doing like 4 coats on here to get like a nice rich sepia sort of color. The more coats you apply, the darker the brown becomes, the more pigment that you're applying. So it will, you know, become more and more opaque every time you put on a layer. It does still maintain that pre-shading pretty well because these are incredibly thin. But I don't know. That's the general idea of what we're doing, at least. Okay, so we're going to pull out this Nuln Oil, which is a sort of black, dark black brown. And this is going on his boots. And I like this general technique of the undershading and then applying a bunch of washes and inks and so forth, because it is fairly quick to paint these guys up, and the finished result is usually pretty darn good. It usually looks like you put way more effort into it than maybe you actually did. Which, considering I'm going to be painting up at minimum, currently I have 50 of these guys, so I'm going to be definitely painting up all 50 of them. The maximum unit size is 60, so I will probably pick up another 10 eventually so that I can have at least one full unit. Whether or not my sort of army of zombies, my horde of zombies, grows beyond 1 to 2 units or potentially more, that's, you know, over time we'll see how that goes. Is there necessarily like a super need for that? No, probably not. Not in terms of like, you know, crazy, you know, gameplay or competitive gameplay. Like, realistically, zombies aren't like a good unit, really. But thematically, they fit my army super well, and I super love them. So I'm gonna do it anyway. Alright, so we're doing this guy's boots in the brown. Dark brown. This is Agrax Earthshade. We're just sort of being relatively careful not to get it on the pants, but again, you know, if we mingle some browns, we're going for like a worn leather look on the pants. So if we have some different spots of like a different brown, not really the end of the world. That being said, I probably could have painted these boots in a similar fashion to the pants, since they're both leather, and then just maybe done some extra of this particular shade on them to differentiate them from the pants. So that may sort of, I may just do like a couple of coats of the brown on here, and then switch back over to the sepia, and then do the rest of the coats in sepia. But we'll see. Let's see. What other stuff do I need to do here? Oh, that brown. We're going to do this on the haft? What's the... I don't know what the right word is, but the stick on his little weapon here. Handle. Sort of resting his head on it, so we do want to be a little bit careful when we get to that area. Don't want to completely destroy the work we've done so far. But with a little bit of care and attention. This even... no, that's completely off screen. That's one weapon handle. This guy's... so this is going to be another thing where this is going to be like probably at least 3 coats of this brown onto the weapon handles here, just to kind of give them a more, I guess, woody appearance. But it does, I noticed on the first couple that I did in this fashion, it does give a really nice kind of worn wood appearance. Like it's just like been out in the weather, as I have like a number of wooden handled tools, yard tools and so forth, rakes and the like. If they get left out, as many of them have, because sometimes I'm real bad at putting my toys away when I'm done with them. But the handles, like, they'll turn like kind of an ashy brown, and that's, you know, sort of the color this stuff turns out. you can see that well illustrated on this guy's, where is he? There he is, on this guy's weapon here. There we go. You can see that sort of like, you know, ashy brown. And it ended up a little darker at the base, probably due to the wash sort of like settling that way with gravity. And to a point, that pre-shading as well definitely sort of like helped in that. The upper areas are a little bit lighter than the darker. So I like the effect on that. Okay, so now I'm going to, we're going to try something in the spirit of trying things that are a little different. So what I did on this guy and this guy, these first two guys, their clothing, so any of the fabric on their bodies, I did in Screamer Pink from Citadel. And then I think I washed it with probably the purple wash here, Druchii Violet. And then it looks like I used Pink Horror to highlight it up and sort of give it that dimensionality. Now, that was a little closer to the color that I actually wanted their shirts to be. Now, the color of my army, it's mainly black and purple as like their two major colors, and then the bright bluey sort of greeny color is the sort of pop color that I've been using across a lot of them to sort of mostly symbolize magic and stuff like that. So that being said, the other two guys I did that I painted in this same technique. The first two guys I did not. So these guys I used just straight Druchii Violet and just did layer after layer of that on their shirts to, you know, sort of give this kind of an effect here. This is very similar to the overall color of the army, but I also like the sort of more almost burgundy color here. So I'm sort of curious, and I'm going to try mixing on the fabric on these two guys. I'm going to mix the red and the purple, you know, basically do a couple of layers of each and see. I'll probably even alternate just so that they blend pretty nicely, and do like a layer of purple, a layer of red, a layer of purple, a layer of red, and then we'll see what it looks like after that. And you know, the idea, I guess, sort of in my head, is that the burgundy color is is similar to the purple in that it's maybe it's like just a sun-bleached version of it, or you know, something along those lines. I had given some thought to and still want to do this at some point as like maybe not and while these washes dry, I'm just gonna switch up like this for a little bit of story time. Something I want to do to sort of expand on the story of this army and the region in which it is from is I'm going to be doing what is essentially going to be a Cities of Sigmar army, but I would like it to still be sort of deathy. It's going to be from the realm of death, but my idea is using Vampire Lord models and maybe some conversions for my own Vampire Lords, which I have planned. That'll serve double duty, and they will be my Vampire Lords in my Legions of Nagash army and any of my Death armies, but they will also serve in my Cities of Sigmar army as my Free Guild generals. And I'll have to look and see like base sizes and stuff like that But I have a conversion in mind using as a base the Reichnor model for Nighthaunt, and just change out the rider and give it a more sort of vampiric looking rider. And then that will basically serve as my free guild general on Griffin for my army. And the idea is that it'll be a human settlement that is basically ruled by the vampire class, and you know, they're sort of like the old vampire counts or vampire courts of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. There we go. My brain is a little foggy. There's a little water there, and so basically, the idea is that if there is a mix of like the undead, which is basically their fighting force, like that's mostly like their army, and that army is used to protect and conquer outside of the city. But then inside of the city is a thriving human population that is, you know, sort of like it lives a little side by side with their dead relatives and ancestors and stuff like that. But those living would have their own sort of like colors along with them, which would be like the burgundy, and then I think I was going to try and work in some like creams and stuff like that. Basically, you know, using a lot of the old Warhammer Fantasy Battles Empire stuff, and the Cities of Sigmar, largely the human element of those, so like the Free Guild and stuff like that. Because realistically, elves are gross. I don't like elves. Dwarves are okay though; they have nice beards, so I can't hate on dwarves. All right, so I think we are ready to go back down here. So here's where we're at with these guys. We have our skin tone sort of set initially, and it's got this nice sort of like mummified brown, like this off green. I don't know how else to describe it, but I think you see it and you get it. This guy, you can see with just that one layer of the red, we've got like a light pinky color showing up on his guts there. So we're going to do another coat of the red. Actually, no, I lied. We're going to do a coat of the purple now. And we're just going to get that purple. Now this, I'm going to probably put on a little bit heavier because I want that purple, especially in the recesses, because that's what's going to give us a lot of our depth. So we're going to put this on, not heavily, but I'm not going to like wick it away. We're going to go for even coverage. We're going to let it collect and pool. There's a couple of little tears in his flesh here, so I'm going to just kind of poke a little purple up near those. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay. Now, while we have this purple out, we're going to do the cloth. So we're going to start with one layer on this guy's sleeve here. More in the brush than I want. Bleed some of that out on the paper towel. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing like some zombies that are almost a little bit more cartoony, like a little bit more saturated greens, and maybe like some deeper browns. So the, you know, trying to really play with those colors a little bit. Like this guy's got a big... Oh, he's got a large hole in his elbow that I missed with the skin, so I'm going to have to come back and hit that. But we'll get the shirt sleeve going. And same on the other side. This one I did manage to get the elbow because I was actually paying attention. I know it's shocking. Alright. So that's the coat of purple on the cloth. We will let that dry, and that usually dries out like a, I don't know, like a lilac type color on the first coat, which is fine. Let's see. Let's take our sepia color. And we're going to hit the pants again. And we're also going to hit a couple other little areas. So, starting on this guy, we're going to first hit the pants. And you can see how, or at least hopefully you can see, that as I'm applying this second coat, already the pants are like the color, the areas of color are much more saturated the second coat than they were on the first. And that's, you know, sort of the power of layering these things is the more layers you put on while they're super thin initially, and each individual layer does not push the color strongly in any one direction. The more successive layers you put on there, the bolder and more saturated those colors become. So you've got a lot of control in that regard, I think. Alright. So pants are done on this guy. Now, as I mentioned before, he has a lot of skull showing. So we're going to use this sepia color on the skull part of him, which is most of his head. And I don't know that this is necessarily going to show up well because his face is incredibly in shadow, which is kind of the opposite, really, of what you want when you are painting a miniature. You want the attention to be drawn to its face, because that's usually where the human eye has a tendency of going. And you want something to relate to, but the fact that his face is very sort of downward in the pose kind of adds a little bit to the creepy factor, because his face is so shadowed you can't really get a clear read on him. The other thing that'll be fun is the contrast. The bright point on his face is going to end up being his eyes, because all of these have glowing eyes painted on them. I've been using, on the zombies, I've been using this Gauss Blaster green color, which I used on my night goblins for their moon iconography, and I fell in love with the color. So much so that I've considered going back over a fair portion of my undead stuff to change the eye color to this, as opposed to the this like bright sort of ice blue. But I'm so deep into the army at this point that I'm not sure a change in color like that is necessarily what I want. But for the zombies, at least, you know, bringing in a little bit of that green and having this color in the eyes, I like. You can see to pretty good effect on this guy's eyes right there, even like zoomed out and not really in focus. They're like these bright pinpricks in his sockets. And it just like, I don't know, it's super creepy. And I like it. So on this guy in particular, those are going to really stand out because it's almost like black, his face. But then he's just going to have like these two bright pinpricks of light. So kind of looking forward to that once that is done. Okay, so we did a second layer on his pants. We did his bone face. We're now going to jump over to the other model here, and we are going to do the same thing. So we're going to do a second coat on the pants, like so. And get all the little nooks and crannies. Get up in his little bum. All right. So we're now 2 coats deep on the pants. We've got probably at least 2 more coats to go until the color is where we want it. I am going to use this same sepia color on the wraps around the weapon right here. Ideally, this will sort of, if I only do like 1, maybe 2 coats, this will give it sort of like an aged white cloth appearance, like it's just dirty white cloth. And that's very much what I'm going for. I'm actually going to put a pretty heavy wash on of this, just to really play that up, I think. There we go. That works for me. Is there anything else I wanted to... Oh, right. So this guy has, like I said before, the old-timey toothache head wrap thing, where it's basically just like a piece of cloth tied around his head, top to bottom, and it seems to be holding his lower jaw on. So we're going to just... I took some of the greenish hue off of that earlier. So we're going to come in with this and kind of paint this over the fabric, the cloth, similar to what I just did on the weapon handle. We're just trying to further separate that color from the surrounding colors. Now, when I go and finish his skin, because right now this is just basically hinting and coloring that. I'll be going in with some actual paint after this to add like highlights, and we still have to do his hair, and that will further differentiate and break up that color, because right now if you look at that, the you know, you can see a little bit of that sort of like sepia tone in the top versus like the green and stuff like that around on either side, but it's very subtle. So we're going to play that up a little bit. I'll go in and make his hair like a darker color. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, maybe I'll just do that right now. So we'll take a little bit of this Nuln Oil, the black, and we're going to work that into his hair. This is a fun process for me because a lot of it is just sort of like making it up as I go along. It's kind of whatever I think looks good. So in this case, this works out nicely because we're just adding a little bit of extra contrast in here with a layer of this dark wash in on either side. So there's the back done. And there's the front done. And this will probably get at least 1 more coat, just to really sort of shore up those colors a little bit. But right now it's doing the trick for me. I like where it's going. You can see now, I think, if I hold it sideways, like maybe this way here, you can see it's a little bit easier to tell the front and the back. As that dries, it'll just become a little bit more apparent. And this is the guy with the black boots, so while I've got the black wash out, we're going to do another coat on the boots, just to deepen those down. All right. I like the direction this guy's headed in. And I'm pretty sure that was completely off screen again. I apologize. I have a tendency to pull them up to my face so I can see a little bit clearer, and I have a bad habit of realizing too late that that does not help you people see any of what's going on. All right. Ooh. While we're waiting for that stuff to dry, this is one of the technical paints from Citadel. They have a wide variety of technical paints that all do different stuff. Some of them are texture-based. This happens to have some texture in it. It's got like a very fine grit in it. This is Typhus Corrosion. And I'm going to be putting this real quick onto the ends of the weapons. There's a blade in one case and two little pokey things on the other. I'm going to switch over to a really crappy brush for this because I don't want the grit getting stuck in my halfway decent brush bristles. So this is just getting coated onto the weapon blade. And this is mostly a pre-coat. Like, I'm caking this on pretty heavily. I'm not really concerned about retaining any of the initial textures. Like, a little bit will, because as this dries, it'll kind of shrink a little bit. But what it does is it leaves behind like a nice rusty texture, like just that gritty, grainy, rusty vibe, just corroded metal, hence the name Typhus Corrosion. Yeah, so we're putting this on underneath, and then over this I'll be doing metallics, and then stippling on some orange and like orangey brown colors to really play up that rusty effect. But I figured we might as well sort of slap that on there now, just because, you know, no time like the present. If I don't do it now, I might forget about it, as I did on one of these guys. This guy right here, I went straight to the metallics and entirely forgot about putting the texture underneath. So now I'm going to have to put the texture on top of the metallics and then put metallics on again. It's not the end of the world, but it's just making an extra step for me that I don't necessarily need to do. All right, so let's revisit the brown here. We're going to take our Earthshade color, our dark brown wash, and this, again, we are coating the weapon with, or the handle of the weapon, I should say. One of the things that I find, to me at least, helps with the looking like aged wood is not being even with this particular coat. Like, you'll see me sometimes like just kind of dab at it and like sort of like put some stipples on there. And all those spots are going to be like more heavily brown, and that mottled sort of overall finish, where it's not 100% just an even same tone, just gives like some dark areas in the wood where maybe there's a chunk taken out, or you know, was a knot in the wood or something like that, you know, and it just sort of makes a little bit more of a natural overall appearance. in my humble opinion. And this guy had the brown boots, so while we've got this wash on our brush, we're just going to hit the boots again. Just going to darken them right down. Now this is the second coat of this on the boots, sort of mentally keeping track of this. So after this coat, and they're a little bit darker brown now, after this coat, I'm going to be doing sepia essentially over the entirety of the leg, including the boots. And hopefully this under shade of the dark brown will differentiate the leathers just enough. I mean, I can always add more if it's too subtle, and I feel like it needs more contrast. So there's that. This is a very sort of fluid. Man, I've wandered off camera again. Part of the problem is this light is like right in my face. So, you know what I need to do is I need to put like a mark on the mat, which is like, this is where you hold the mini, stupid. Just so I can make sure that I keep it better in frame. All right, so I like where the handle's at on this one in particular. It's got that gray brown sort of look to it. So we're good there. We're going to switch over to this red again. And with this, we are going to hit our buddy's guts again. We want to dial that red back up in there. So we've got the purple in the deep recesses, adding our depth. We did one coat of the red under that, which we blended out onto the skin a little bit to give like the sort of like ripped and torn appearance. And now we're giving another heavy coat of red over the top. Now, as I previously discussed as well, I'm going to be trying to alternate back and forth between the purple and the red on the fabric to see if I can reach a color closer or more akin to this sort of pseudo burgundy color. So I've already got a layer of the purple down. I did that first. So now I'm going to come in with the red over the top. We're going to do a layer of red. We're going to see if this gives us sort of the desired effect, which I can already tell that it's pretty close. It doesn't have to be exact, but as long as we hit the ballpark, then that's going to be a pretty good enough sign for me that overall it's going to work. It's kind of hard to read it while it's wet, so we'll revisit that when it's drier. More dry. Right. You know what I mean. Less wet. Yeah, I think I like where this is going with the mix of the red and the purple. I think this is very close to, excuse me, very close to what I was hoping for. So I'm taking that as a good sign. And that's just going to get richer and bolder as we do more coats here. Now, one thing I might play around with is exactly how many coats of what I put on here. So I've got one coat of each, the purple and the red, on the cloth on these guys right now. As this dries, I might take one and do another coat of red and just leave it so it's 2 red to 1 purple, and then the other one will be 2 purple to 1 red, and we'll see how that looks. And that way I can sort of like dial in like how many coats of what to reach what color. As I said previously, I'm super excited with these guys because it gives me that ability to really experiment with some of the colors and this particular style of painting, because this is something I've wanted to learn how to do for quite some time, and I just never really, I don't know, I never really did it for whatever reason, and then I just kind of decided, why keep putting it off? You know, it's never like, I can watch a million videos on painting in this particular style, and if I don't like actually start trying it, then it's not going to do me much good. So you got to get a feel for the you got to get a feel for the colors and how everything works, and you know, how much is too much, what's not enough, that kind of thing. All right, so I think you can see now where those pants are getting to. If you remember back or rewind back to where they were initially, you can see that that's quite a shift in the color. It's now a very rich sort of camel brown. So it's definitely sort of shifting in the right direction now. And this guy's boots are still drying. He's got, let's see, what can I do on him while I wait? He's got a little bit of hair on him too, so we're going to do this guy's hair in the same kind of black wash, and we'll revisit the first guy too and give him another coat at it. I apparently need to get another pot of this. I think I have some small pots of this kicking around, some older, smaller pots, and I will see if I can find them, and I will then sort of dump them in here and just reuse this larger bottle. So he's got like a little tiny baby lock on this front of his head, and he's got a little rat tail in the back. That's about it for hair on this guy. Quite the old punk rock kind of vibe. Like it was a mohawk at one point, and then somehow the middle of it just got ripped out. So now it's just kind of like this little poof in the front, and then like, you know, chunk in the back. It's entertaining. All right. So now we're gonna do this here on this guy's hair. Like so. A little bit on his forehead. Did not want that. Let's lift that off. Sweet. You guys looking pretty good. Pretty good. I think he's going to need another coat of black on his boots, which look dry enough to take that coat now. We're going to slap that on. And I think that will give us 3 coats of black on his boots, which seems to me to be sufficient. You can still get a little bit of that undershading through, so like on the back of his calf, it's a little lighter than under his shin, which is in shadow. The tops of his toes are a little bit lighter than like in the deep recesses of his ankles. Nice. All right. Quick and easy. It's kind of what I'm going for. I don't want these guys to be overly complicated, but I want them to look nice. And I think so far we're getting that. I could not be happier with where these guys are at for the amount of time and effort I've put into them so far. That's for sure. Oh, I don't know what I did. If I slept on it weird, or work has been particularly rough on me or something like that this week, but man, my shoulder is just not happy with me at all. Sitting here doing this, it's starting to kind of act up a little on me. That is uncomfortable. Okay, so you know, we're gonna grab that typhus corrosion again. This guy's, he's got like, it looks like a metal like bracer or like a cuff of some kind with like a loop on it. Like maybe he was a prisoner or something like that. So I want that to be metal. It could theoretically be super worn leather. With you know, like a little ring attached to it. I know in my high school goth days I had more than one bracelet that was a leather bracelet with metal rings on it, so it would not at all be surprising if that was a thing. But I'm going to opt to make it very rusty, broken, corroded metal, because why not? Maybe on one of the other guys that has the same bracelet, I'll do it in leather. That way they look a little different from each other. But we're going to just kind of slap this corrosion texture paint on his bracelet. I think it'll be a nice way to break up the color on him too. It'll bring a little bit of that rusty color somewhere else on the model, which most of these other guys don't have, because it's just like the blades on their weapons. And I feel like that's, you know, across the unit, across an army, like, that's good enough. You know, I don't need to bring that sort of, like, orangey brown elsewhere. Although, I guess one could argue that the sepia has, like, some of those sort of, like, orangey brown tones to it as well. So, I guess it does sort of make its way elsewhere in the model. So it's not super sort of one note. All right. Okay. So we are going to, what are we up to next? What's dry? What can we work on? I like the weapon hafts. I like the pants are almost dry. Well, pants are definitely dry. Oh, I was waiting on the brown on these boots to dry. You know what? Those look dry enough. If I get a little mixing of color, that's fine. Certainly not the end of the world. Okay, so we're going to grab our sepia color again here. And we're going to do our fourth, I think. We're up to 4 now. This is our 4th coat on the pants, and we're going to bring it down onto the boots this time too, just to kind of start to tie the two in together and make them very distinctly leather. Just different types of leather, different ages of leather, that kind of thing. Maybe this is only coat 3? Frankly, I don't know. But I feel like it might need another coat after this. We'll see. We'll see. This was going to be my last coat of it, but I'll change it on the fly as we need to here. But I don't remember if I actually finished what I was saying about this earlier, but this is on the pants here. This is my attempt at painting worn leather, like old aged leather. The original sort of tutorial and step-by-step on how to do this I got from Venturella's YouTube channel. Incredibly good artist, very informative videos. I absolutely love him. And I will, as I said previously, I will make sure to post I'll make sure to post a link to that video in particular, and then by extension his channel. but I'll post that up in the description of the video once it goes up on YouTube. And maybe I'll post up. You know what? Why don't we let that dry? Why don't I do that here? I'll open up another tab real quick. History on YouTube. Watched it recently. Where did it go? There it is. Link in new tab. Oh, go away. Pop-ups. Alright, so then we are going to take this, copy. I'm going to slap it up right in the comments. Paste. And this will also serve me later that I can go back and just copy and paste that link right out of there. Cool. Anyway, so that's done. We have our pants drying now. I think the cloth is dry. So we're going to add our next layer onto the cloth. So which one will be which? Let's do... Huh. Let's do this guy with a coat of red and this guy with the... No, we'll do this guy with a coat of red and this guy with the purple. The reason I'm choosing to do that is already this sleeve is more red than his guts are, which are a little bit more purple. And that's because I was very heavy-handed with the purple wash that I put on here initially. Even though I've done 2 coats of red and 1 coat of purple here, it looks more purple than where I've done like 1 coat of each. So anyway, so we're going to take the... That is the red, yes. Okay. We're going to take the red and we're going to go in. So this sleeve on this guy is going to be 2 coats of Caribert Crimson to 1 coat of Druchii Violet. And we're going to see where that color... Ooh, I like that. I'm going to see where that color rests once it's all dried up. And then we're going to compare that to the other guy, who is going to be 2 coats of Druchii Violet, 1 coat of the Caribert Crimson. But I can already tell you right now that I think we've got a winner. If you look at the 2 sleeves here, that is very similar. But again, it still retains all of that nice undershading. Whereas this, maybe I could make a wash out of the Screamer Pink. That's certainly a possibility. Or a glaze, rather. And then glaze over, which I will experiment with on a future guy. I just didn't want to necessarily throw too many sort of experimental things on my plate all at once. But yeah, that might be our next step. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that when I throw another coat of purple on this guy's sleeves, this is going to tip real quick in the purple direction. The purple is a little bit, I mean, obviously it's darker, so I feel like it's probably a little bit stronger, more overpowering. Yeah, that's definitely way more purple. I don't hate it. It's nice to have a little bit of that sort of variation as well. But it is definitely more purple. I think the other one is our winner. I think it's 2 coats. The answer is 2 coats of red, 1 coat of purple. that's definitely where we're at. Folks, we did it. We solved the mystery. I still haven't done this guy's elbow. All right. I think I'm going to just hit that real quick now. Thinking about it. Actually, you know what? We're gonna do something funky. We're gonna take our Seraphim, because he's got a fairly white little elbow still. I've been pretty good about not hitting it with other colors. So we're gonna take our Seraphim sepia color. We're gonna take our sepia tone, and we're gonna hit the elbow with sepia instead of the flesh, so that when I come back through and layer up and paint, this is going to end up being bone sort of poking through his elbow. So he'll have one bony elbow and one that's very fleshy. Okay. Little variation, you know, little subtle differences. We don't want everything to be exactly the same. We want these guys to all kind of look unique and interesting. And then, but with, you know, common threads between them. So when you see them on the table, you can say, ah, they belong together, and yet I can tell that they are made up of different things. Okay, you can see on this guy that there is definitely that nice contrast and separation between the dark brown on the boots and then the sort of camel leather on the pants. Which is exactly what I was going for. I don't know. I might throw another layer of the dark brown on the boots just to tip that scale further. I'm going to skip this song. That is annoying as hell. I don't know whose bright idea it was to just record a box fan blowing for some like white noise or gray noise, brown noise. I don't know what the hell kind of noise that is. It's annoying. Annoying noise is what that is. Okay. Can I safely? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, I can. Because I want to. And it's getting a little bit late in the stream. We've got a little bit of time to go. We did start a little bit late, so. But I also do have to get up early for work tomorrow. But I did nap today, so, I mean. I think that's a winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. Speaking of which, my wife made chicken parm for dinner, and let me tell you, it was delicious. That woman can cook. Okay, so we're letting all that dry. We are. What are we doing? What's our next step here? Do we want to start the skin? I'm going to, just for the sake of sort of demonstration, we're going to grab our metallic color here. In this case, this is the Vallejo metal color steel, which is not probably not as dark as I would like. If I took this and mixed this with a little bit of black, that would probably do the trick. But I don't really feel like doing that right now. Like if I mixed a little Nuln Oil, if I do a coat of Nuln Oil over it, that will probably be sufficient. But we're just going to put this nice coat on the heads of the weapons. But it's a nice dark steel color. Which is not too far off from sort of the color I would like it to be. So I'm not really complaining. They do have a very wide range of colors in the metal color range, so I will at some point pick up more. They are hands down my favorite metal paints. But we are painting this around the cuff on his arm right now. And while this is a fairly, like, it has really good, decent coverage, it's pretty opaque, it's definitely, like, very metallic. What I'll end up doing is to bring that lighting back in, is I will put, I have the metal color silver as well. So when I go to do highlights on the metals, on the top, I'll put, like, a little bit of that sort of blended in. And then on the underside, I'll probably dab on some of the Nuln oil just to give it a little more shadow down on the bottom, to try and, you know, accentuate that sort of 3D element of it. Okay, so the metallic on that model is done. We're gonna do, I don't know what this is. This, it looks like a pitchfork, but it only has 2 prongs on it. So I don't know if this has a technical name. I don't know if it is just a pitchfork, but, like, it's a different, older style of pitchfork or something. Like, I don't know. I always think of pitchforks having 3 prongs. But I'm also no expert on pitchforks. Okay. It has like a little bracelet. I didn't want to put the texture on this because it's real small. But we'll just paint a little bit of the silver onto it, and that'll probably just do the trick. Thinking about doing that gold as well, but I don't know. Maybe we'll go back and put some gold in there. Who knows? He does look like a farmer, and I feel like a farmer's not going to have like a gold bracelet, but he might have an iron one. Then again, if he owns a farm, maybe he's a little on the wealthier side because he's like, maybe his farm is successful. I don't know. What's his story? We'll never know. He's dead now. All right, so we're going to do one more coat of the sepia on this guy. The other one, it looks like maybe I put on a thicker layer somewhere along the line, but it looks more saturated than this one. So I'm just going to do this one guy with another coat on his pants. And this is the one with the brown boots. I said I was going to do another wash of the dark brown, which I still will. I keep wandering so far off this camera. I am real out of it today, guys, and I apologize. I'm not on my game. Is this... the camera got knocked around a little bit, but not like... not a ton. I'm just doing a bad job staying on frame. Can't blame anything but me. Alright, so we got that. Let's rinse. Switch back to our dark brown. So one of the things that I might try, while I'm just sort of like randomly thinking about it, just kind of popped into my head, and I'll wait to try it on another model. I don't want to necessarily try it on these guys because I like where they're at right now. But I was talking about trying to do like dead, like zombified, darker skin tones. And I wonder if doing, like, adding an extra coat. So, okay. If we did the Reichland Flesh Shade on the bottom to get that sort of, like, ruddy, like, reddish color in there first, you know, because, like, all human skin has some element of red in it because blood shows up as red. So that will get those sort of, like, underlying reddish, like, notes in there, right? Then if we were to take the dark brown wash and do a dark brown wash over the top of that, so it would, much like the wood on these handles, it would be sort of like an ashy brown, which I feel like if the life got sucked out of, you know, like sort of like that African skin tone, and it was all dried up, it would have that sort of like ashy quality to it. So I wonder if that would then, like the two of those mixed would give you your base skin tone. Maybe even like one coat of the Reichland to 2 coats of the Agrax, depending on what that finish is. Like, you know, if it's not dark enough, add another layer of the dark brown wash. But then take your dark, and another thing to keep in mind too is this Athonian Camo Shade does have a little bit of brown in as well. So I'm tempted to try doing 1 coat of each. So do 1 coat of the Reichland, followed by 1 coat of the Agrax, followed by 1 coat of Athonian. And I want to see what that. Unfortunately, I don't have another zombie primed up right now, ready to go. Otherwise, I'd try it now just to sort of like get an idea of what that might look like, to see if that's like a solid base or not for what I have in mind. But it's certainly something to think about, and it's something to play with, and I like the fact that I sort of had a thought in that direction, because for a while I was kind of stumped on how to do it and do it well, I guess. So we'll see. But I think that could work. It certainly has potential. And depending on like what I'll do is similar to the experiment I did on the cloth for these 2 guys, where I did like, okay, let's do 2 coats of purple here and 1 coat, like they each got a coat of red, and then one got a second coat of red and a coat of purple, and then the other one got 2 more coats of purple. You know what I mean? So that like each one got slight variation on the recipe, just to kind of see which one I liked better. So what I'll end up doing is I'll prime up 2 more, and then I'll experiment with the skin on those guys, and I will do 1 coat of the Reichland Flesh Shade. It'll get 1 coat of the Athonian Camo Shade, and then one will get a single coat of the Agrax. The other one will get 2 coats. And then I'll compare the 2 once they're all dried and see which one I like better for that sort of like dried out, mummified, zombified, like African skin tone. And we'll see if that works. I'm not 100% either will work, but you know, we're kind of experimenting here, trying to learn a little bit as we go. And then when it comes time to layer up the highlights, I have plenty of colors that I think would work with that as a base to then sort of like highlight up a little bit. So we'll see. What do we got for time? Still got a little bit of time. Probably about 10-15 minutes left to go in the show. So let's see where we're at with these fellers. I don't know what's missing from this guy. There's like, it looks like, I don't know if it wiped off or maybe there's like a weird bit of glue from when the previous owner assembled these. But like right under his neck, like did not take with the rest of the skin tone. I'm not sure entirely which colors are missing. So I'm going to start with just the dark green. It's sort of in shadow, so worst case scenario is I just kind of push those shadows up a little bit with the dark green, and you know, it's not really a big deal. We're gonna just work some of that in there. I think down here needed a little bit too. Then I'm actually gonna grab that flesh tone. We'll try and work some of that in real quick too, just to sort of wet blend it all together while it's drying, just to make sure that it's got all of the appropriate colors in there. Yeah, no, that's good. That worked. Hooray! I'm about to say crises averted, but I would hardly classify that as a crisis. Okay. Yep, metallics are dry. Cool. So we're going to take our Agrex Earthshade back out again. And you can see, too, like, one of the joys of doing this is I'm basically alternating between, what, 7 colors here? And just swapping between those 7 colors, and by applying those same 7 colors in just, like, a slightly different pattern, or you know, whatever, you do get a little bit more variety, but it's like a nice limited palette. Makes for some really interesting outcomes, I think. I know I'm having a lot of fun sort of painting these guys, as I hopefully have conveyed to you all, but yeah, it's just a lot of fun. And I like the freedom of it, you know, like I'm not trying to make them super perfect, and I'm not trying for, you know, like I'm using them very much as a learning experience, and in an attempt to grow as an artist, and as such, I've already sort of come to terms with the fact that I will make mistakes, and any mistakes that I make are perfectly fine because it's part of that growth and part of that learning. So there you go. Take that for whatever it's worth, I guess. A little inspiration or something. I don't know. Not really trying to be inspirational at the moment, but if that's how you take it, I certainly won't object. All right, we're dropping some more of this black wash onto his hair. Same with this guy here. All right. Now this guy should be much more apparent now, the little cloth head wrap on there, because his hair is nice and darkened down, so you get that contrast going on. I can tell you I'm a lot happier with the way that looks. So, you know, there's that. Let's do a little bit of the Seraphim again, the sepia that I did the cloth with, and we're going to hit a couple areas of that wrap that didn't really seem to take much pigment. I'm trying to be a little bit more selective in where I apply this and how much goes on there, because I don't want to overly darken the areas that already took the pigment well. But some of it, I think I just applied it a little bit too thinly, and so it hardly had an effect and didn't really push the color one way or the other. So I'm just reinforcing this color where I feel like it needs it. That looks pretty good to me. I'll put another little coat on the wrap on the weapon here, just to really kind of bring that out. Pulls it a little bit more in line with a lot of the leather that's already on here too. So like, instead of cloth wrapped around it, maybe it's sort of ambiguous. It could be either cloth or leather, or, you know, any one of a number of other brown or vaguely brown materials. Could be anything. All right. I don't know about you guys, but so far I'm real happy with how these zombies are looking. I think they look pretty darn cool, and certainly very moody and sort of creepy. That's the fronts, and then their backs, which are more hunched over. So this is where all the light is hitting. You can see that this is much lighter here than it is on the front, like where their chest is, where it's like in shadow. Now, when I go in with the highlight colors, which I don't know that I'm necessarily going to have time for now, but we can get started. And maybe if the stream runs a little bit later than I'd anticipated, but it means I get to sort of show some of that off, then might be okay with that. So for these guys, I am using these two colors for the skin. This is Rakarth Flesh, one of the colors that I probably overuse, but I absolutely love it for like a myriad of uses. And it's just like a nice, you know, sort of creamy, like beige, off beige color. And then Pallid Witch Flesh is the other color I'm using, and this is a much more sort of off-white, sort of warm white color. Yeah, it's got like just like that ever so subtle hint of like flesh tone to it, of like, you know, that sort of reddy, you know, like, I don't know that I've ever actually seen a human with skin this color, but it's typically a highlight on like a very extreme fine highlight on like a Caucasian skin tone. Like, I guess like if you were to look at my face right now, let me see if I can catch, okay, like this, where is it? This little shine spot right here on my forehead, that's about like what I would use that color to try and represent. You know what I mean? Like, it's where that bright highlight is on like Caucasian skin tone. That's essentially what this color is. Or at least that's what I typically use it for. Let's put it that way. It's not the sole purpose of that color. I also use it to highlight bone and stuff like that, because it does have like that sort of beigey quality to it. And so, you know, extreme highlight on bone, extreme highlight on Caucasian skin. And that's typically its uses for me. But it also works great for like an undercoat for, I use it as like an undercoat for most of my bone. So I'll use that and then put like the sepia color over the top of it. And then that dries a nice bone color. And then I'll go back in with either a little bit of that and a little bit of the Pallid Witch Flesh here, which was the other color I had. I don't know if I actually said the name of it or not, but there you go. And that's usually a very nice, like, sort of bone recipe for me. It gives a nice pale bone. Yeah, I don't know. I've used it as a base for a lot of the mushrooms that I painted. Hey, what's up, Krista? How's it going? I've used that color for a lot of the base coat for the mushrooms that I painted up for the Gloomspite Gits, the goblins. I did a lot of candles with that color as well, like just like raw candle wax, that kind of thing. So it's got a ton of uses, but that's my sort of my go-to stuff. All right, so I'm going to switch over to a smaller, finer brush for this. Now this is going to be just like a lot of stippling, really. So it might not be the most exciting thing to watch, but I will tell you it's really fun on my end, because again, like, the name of the game with these zombies is freedom. And like when it comes to like painting these things, I just enjoy the process. It's kind of a nice, like, almost like check your brain at the door, kind of turn your brain off for a little bit and just paint some zombies, and it's fun. So we're really gonna water this. You can't really see. Let me pull the palette into view a little bit here. We've heavily watered this down at this point, so it's like essentially probably a glaze at this point, judging by the consistency. And we're gonna sort of wick off any excess on here, because we don't want a ton. But we're gonna come in and just stipple through applying, stippling is basically just putting a bunch of dots. So we're going to cap off the shoulders, and basically we're just applying this as a highlight. So where the lighter areas are right now on the skin, we're going in and we're just sort of putting this on here. Now we do want to maintain the dark recesses. So like we'll take his chest right here, for example. He's got his little collarbone here, so we're going to put like a little bit of this on the collarbone. We're going to leave the space in between it, but then we're going to catch the top of his pectoral here to really kind of pull that out. Much the same under the pectoral on what is looks like the top of his belly and his rib. We're going to come in and we're going to stipple in like right on there as well, back up into his armpit. And then on the next rib down, I think this is what that is. We're basically just going to kind of add in the highlighting and some extra paleness and lightness back into the model. Because the washes do darken it down, as time goes. Poor Jackson. I'm sorry I'm confusing the little guy. So again, we just wick off a little bit of extra, and we're going to come back in and stipple in along the top of his belly on this other side. We're going to catch that top rib. We're going to come down onto the second rib and just kind of meet the highlight there. Get across the top of this pec. And again, we're trying to like leave those shadows pretty much intact. At the side of his neck here, he's got some neck muscle things going nuts. I'm going to do like a hard line on the top of the shoulder blades that are really poking out. But we'll do some stippling back in here. Making sure like where the definition on the arm muscles, like we want to get the tops of the muscles that are going to be a little bit like more towards the light. And again, we're trying to just add a little bit of shape, a little bit of depth and definition, and that's the idea. Tops of his shoulders and neck muscles. Not entirely sure what that muscle group is off the top of my head. Been a while since I studied any of that stuff. Alright, so we're getting all the little muscles, bringing out, hopefully we can see on the arm now, like all the nice definition that we've got going on there. But it's a fairly subtle blend. It's not like a stark paint line, and that's because we've got this nice and thinned down, so like the edges are a little bit thinner of where I'm applying the paint. Like it's a little bit more transparent because it's a lot more water than it is paint. And the stippling technique in general, you know, it applies the paint in I guess, an inconsistent manner. So it's not, I don't know, it lends itself to, I think, at least to blending, particularly on something like this, where it's organic and, you know, we're hitting his ribs on the back, and he's got like sort of a rear muffin top thing going on, so we're just going to kind of stipple in here to try and get the highlight on that. Those ribs out a little. Grab a little bit of his elbow. Using the side of the brush, I'm now picking out like the tendons and stuff in the fingers. Trying to bring a little bit more, again, just a little bit more definition, a little bit more highlight in there. I'll come back in with the lighter color and just put dots on the knuckles, and then I'll do like a smaller area on top of the highlights I've already placed on with this color. But let's get this guy's face now while I'm thinking about it. So we're gonna focus this on like the top of his nose. We're gonna get his cheeks and along the side of his cheekbones, up across his temples. Basically all the little raised areas. We're gonna make sure we get his little chin. His chinny chin. A little bit on his jaw. So we're going to get like the middle of his forehead and like right under the hair. And then we're going to leave a little bit of a gap, but then we're going to pick up on his brow ridge. Again, that's just sort of giving a little bit of added definition between the areas. Getting his little cheekies. Grab his nose again. Let's see if we can grab some of his upper lip area here. That looks all right. I'm just trying to focus on his other hand right now. Yeah, cool. I think this guy's more or less done. Or at least that step is. All right, so now we are going to scoop up a little bit more water with our brush, and we're going to pull out a little bit of this pallid witch flesh. And we are going to essentially repeat the process just in a smaller area with a lighter color. Bleach some of that off. Again, we're going to come in, we'll start on his back, I suppose. Collarbone, neck. But yeah, so stippling, like I said, it does leave like a sort of a mottled texture on it, which for me is what I'm going for, because, you know, like maybe it's implying that there's some mold or something like that on the flesh. But yeah, I think you can see here that we're near, it's like a warm, like I said, a warm white. It looks still kind of drying, so it looks maybe a little stark right now, but it's not as bad as it looks. Just making sure we get, and we're not at all covering, like, you know, the entirety of the previous layer. We're just kind of picking out like more of the I don't know, the sharper features. The like on the hands, we're getting the primarily just the knuckles. So we're just going to come through and just dot the knuckles. So, and maybe even almost a little bit too potent a layer that we're putting on. But that's fine. We're going to kind of glaze some in on the very top of the hand where that's like up, you know, very prominent. Yeah, I'd say this is like equal parts stippling and glazing at this point. Like, we're just kind of going for a not super consistent, but you know, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, we're not looking for like a super even, thorough coverage, but we don't also want it like not well defined. Sorry, I know I'm pulling sort of out of shot here. I'm just trying to get some of these, see some of these little details that are otherwise in shadow. And so then we're going to come in. I can't quite see here. We're going to try and grab his little teeth. Put some little dots on his teeth. Draw some attention to those. The side of the brush works wonders for that. Okay. So there's his face mostly done. You can see all the like the very gaunt, sort of stretched out features. You can see the teeth. You can see all the things you need to. Now, what I think is going to... Oh, no, did I... No. Looks like when I was painting his bracelet with the metallics, I thought it was just shine, but I got a little bit of that metal on his guts here. Oh, that's a pain in the ass. I don't know how I'm going to necessarily get rid of that. Here, I don't know. Let's see if we can show you guys what I'm talking about. There you go. You can see here along his ribs a little reflection line, and you can see right in here probably a little bit of that metallic paint that I didn't realize I'd smudged on him. Ah, that sucks. Oh well. Let's see. How can we rectify that? Well, we can start by taking some of our pallid witch flesh here. Our super bright highlight color. Now these would have been areas that were relatively highlighted anyway, so we're just going to stipple this right on top of the metallic, and we're going to kind of just blend that in with the surrounding area in terms of the highlights. And then we're going to come in and kind of do the same thing on the intestines. Trying to focus mainly on getting it on the metallic areas that I screwed up earlier. But because this is a very off-white color, this is going to be very similar or reminiscent to our initial pre-shading that we did. So we're basically stripping it by adding this on top of that metallic that I goofed and got on there by accident. We're basically resetting it back to 0. And based on the placement, it's not the end of the world, because I can take this red wash, the Carroburg Crimson, and we'll take this nice sort of smaller brush here. Pull up a little bit of that. Now this you can stipple on around the opening of the wound. Trying to again blend it in, and we're going to put it right over that off-white that we just sort of stippled on there too. A little heavy on around the wound. Okay. And while that is drying, we're not even going to wait for it to dry. We're just going to go right into our purple, and we're going to sort of mix that in on top there. Wick a little bit of that out. Apply a little bit around the wound. Okay, all right. What do we need? We need a little bit of this Agrax. Athonian Camo Shade we need. And this is because that off-white is missing the green, so the red is a little bit more apparent. So we're just going to try and blend a little bit of that in around the open, that open wound area. Just trying to get the similar mix of pigments in the same area. Now, I probably should be waiting for some of this stuff to dry in between, but it's not, I guess, the end of the world. We'll blow on it a little bit. If I had a hair dryer, that would be ideal. All right. It is 9:27. So I am officially running long here. Okay. I know where I'm screwing this up. And this is kind of the fun thing with painting, is it's just paint. You're never gonna like ruin a model per se. You can just kind of keep going back and forth. Just blowing on it now, trying to dry up that wash a little bit quicker. So I've gone back to my red, and we're going to put a little bit of this red over the green to, that's better. All right. And then we're going to put the red over the purple. All right, here we go. It's still drying, but essentially we fixed it. Just took a little quick thinking. We got it there. All right. Well, I did not get to finish the pants. So you didn't get to see the full technique there. It wasn't necessarily the straight focus of this video. I was trying to get as much of the zombies done as possible. And realistically, I did pretty okay. This one here is like almost done. And you can see what a difference those highlights make. Like, again, like look at their backs. This being, of course, the highlighted one versus just the washes over that pre-shade. Now, you could do this and basically leave it, and it would look okay. It would look fine. But I think going back in and adding just those extra little highlights, so this color here ends up being your recess color, with this lighter, creamier color on top. But I just like the definition that brings is just, you know, night and day. And it's still in shadow. It's still thinned paint. So you're still getting some of that pre-shading through it. It's just sort of like adding a little bit of extra and boosting contrast where it needs it. And yeah, I'm a big fan of doing things this way now. Not every model I paint will be done this way, but especially on like things like this where I'm painting a lot of them and trying to do it relatively quickly, like both of these guys. So 2 guys done in about 2 hours. And realistically, if I had 2 or 3 more models, like if I was doing like 5 at a time in this way, you noticed that several times I had to like stop and wait for a coat to dry, right? So like that was time being wasted. If I had like another 2 models or something like that and was basically continuing the same step across all of them, batch painting, then, which I have openly said previously that I am not a fan of doing, and I'm intentionally not trying to batch paint these guys because I don't want them to look all like identical. I don't want them to all look samey, you know? And if I batch paint them all like that, then I would get that a fair bit. But there certainly are elements that I could batch paint. So like, for instance, the pants on all of these guys, even this guy, this is a slightly different version of it because I painted them dark brown to start with and then had to basically highlight up to then shade down again. So I way overcomplicated things on him. But with these 2 guys here, their pants were done in the exact same way as these pants. And I really like that sort of like ragged, worn leather look. And it works for zombies. Like, you know, they're dead. They crawl out of whatever grave. You know, they're not like, they probably were not incredibly wealthy, judging by their farmer's tools that they're wielding. You know, this guy's got a big scythe. This guy's got a pitchfork looking thing. I don't know what the hell that is. Maybe he was cutting some tree branches or something. Anyway, yeah, so I guess what I'm getting at is I do very much like this technique. Now let's go to our color sort of comparison here. So this was the color I was sort of trying to replicate, and this is the this is Screamer Pink, a wash of purple over it, and then highlighted up with a slightly brighter pink, right? So we take this color and we compare it to what I've got going on the sleeves here. And you can see that this one here is much, much, much closer, if not close to identical to this color right here. It's missing some of those highlights, which I can add in. That's easy enough to do. But it does have a little bit of the natural highlighting from that pre-shading. Whereas this is clearly more purple. That is much closer to, you know, what I've got going on here. It's a little warmer than this is, which is, you know, that's fine. Just sort of an observation, I suppose. But yeah. So I like I said, I really like this, how these guys are turning out. And I think if going forward, this was one coat of red, one coat of purple, and then another coat of red over the top of it. That was the order in which I went. And I think if I replicate that across, you know, like if one of the next ones I will pick one that has like a tunic or, you know, like some other fabric thing going on, so that I can do a larger sample of it, just to see how it works on a larger surface. But I think I really like that technique, and I'm definitely going to like it. Now, the wash on his guts are dry, or dry-ish, and you can see that even after getting metallic paint on his belly, I was able to bring it back pretty well in line with where the other colors were, just by putting on essentially like starting from white again, and then redoing all of the previous steps. And I didn't really wait for those washes to dry, per se. I just kind of blended everything together right there. And I remembered that I did a coat of red, a coat of purple, and then a coat of red on his guts. So I basically just did that again. It was a light coat of red, followed by a heavy coat of purple, followed by a heavy coat of red after that. So that's what I did. And it looks uniform to me. Job well done, go me. Pat myself on the back for that. So what's remaining, you ask? I need to do the pants. So basically the pants entail going in with probably pallid witch flesh and a very fine brush, and just either stippling some dots on here and there, and then just a ton of little dashes and hashes. So wherever there's like raised or hard edges, going in there with like really fine little hash marks, and like a really light beige, like off-white, almost white color, right? And then going in with really watered down black. Honestly, I might even go in with just Nuln Oil and a fine brush and just stipple some of that in some of the darker shadowy areas, a couple on the lighter areas just to like, look like staining. And then one more coat of Seraphim Sepia goes on over it, and that will tint all of those lighter colors into the sepia range, tying everything sort of together, and reinforcing the richness of what's already there. I will, I've already posted actually, I just don't know how visible it is on those pictures. I'll have to take some better pictures. But I have posted up some pictures of the finished zombies on my Instagram, which should have filtered out to Facebook and to Twitter as well. So those can be found there. So the pants are remaining. I'll probably do a little bit of highlighting on the boots, the black boots especially here. And then the metallics need to be finished. And that's basically just stippling on a little bit of like a bright orange. So I have two colors that I like to use for rust. Where are they? Scrag brown, which is a nice orangey brown. And then the other one is suitably named Ryza Rust, which is this bright orange color here. So I will heavily water this down and apply spots of it, and then come back over and stipple the orange on over, leaving a little bit of the brown around the outside. And that's usually how I do my rust. Especially on something like this where like I don't necessarily want to spend a ton of time doing like 6 colors to do some rust spots. There's ways to add more color to sort of like bring more attention and definition to that rust. If it was like a larger, bigger deal model, then maybe I would do that, but I'm not overly concerned with these guys. So just a little bit of that like orange brown, and then a little bit of the orange. And then what I'll do is I'll come through with my silver and just add like edge highlights to the metallics, and like a little sharpened edge. So just some like little scratches over the surface to sort of show where the rust has been knocked off, and like, it's collided with something's armor or a nail or another weapon or whatever. And so it's, had that rust knocked off and is down to like just sort of bare metal again. So anyway, that's got to be done on this guy. I'll probably highlight his intestines somehow. Honestly, I think I'm going to sort of take a note from some other models that I've got in the army. And this might sound a little weird, but I'm going to highlight his intestines with, I think, this color here, Fenrisian Gray, which is like a really desaturated light gray blue. And I'm basically just going to like do some little like hash marks along the intestines. And I think that will finish out those. And then I have to dot the eyes. So, and then this guy obviously has a little bit more work. He needs all of that plus the highlighting on the skin, and he's got a fair bit of bone, especially on his skull. So, and was it this guy that had the elbow? Yeah, this guy's elbow. So his back elbow here, and then his skull, which is mostly exposed. So that all needs to be done in bone, which won't be terribly difficult. And then, yeah, and then he'll be done too. So anyway, let's get this out of the way, and we're going to just pull this screen up. So I'm going to go ahead and call things here, guys. I apologize for the little bit of a late start today. Normally, if I'm doing a Thursday stream, I like to start at 7. I don't think I was on until about 7:15 or so. So, you know, I was a little behind on my end, but not the end of the world. So, schedule-wise, like I said, we're away this weekend, which is why the early stream this week. Next week, I don't believe I have anything going on next week. So I think for the near future, at least, this was like I'll be back on my normal Friday schedule. I don't like having to sort of like readjust my streaming schedule. Honestly, in a perfect world, I'd be able to stream at least one more night a week too, if only for like an hour or maybe 2, depending. But Mondays and Tuesdays, my wife works nights, and so I've got my daughter, and trying to stream with a 2-year-old running around in the background is not going to happen. The rest of the weekdays, I get up for work, you know, at like 3:30 in the morning. So we're already like pushing well into time I should probably be asleep. But my daughter usually goes to bed like around 8 or so. So the potential is there, maybe, for like a weeknight stream if there's interest. So let me know in the comments if there's interest in more streaming or not. I'm also probably going to be looking to different platforms soon. Oh, I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, so I'll mention it here because it needs to be mentioned. I currently only waiting on one thing, my new motherboard. RAM, new processor. They came in the mail today, and the motherboard should be here. It's coming from overseas, I believe, so it's going to take a little bit to get here, but it is on its way. And I think they said something like, 5 to 7 business days or something like that, and I think it shipped last night, something like that. So the good news is my computer, probably by this time next week, just in time for next week's stream, my computer should be fully upgraded and updated with new motherboard, new processor, new RAM, and I'm excited for that, let me tell you. So that's fantastic news. Then next up on my list of like hardware stuff is a new webcam, because this one in particular is a piece of poo-poo, and it needs to go bye-bye. All right, that's all I got for updates right now. If anything needs to be updated along the way, between now and next week's stream, you can look to my Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram as well. Follow me here on Facebook. And head on over to my YouTube channel, which I should probably add some sort of a thing for on here. I don't know why it's not there, quite frankly. But anywho, YouTube. YouTube.com/Wes Odinson, WESODINSON. It's the same for Instagram. It's the same for Twitter, @Wes Odinson for both of those. Yeah, go ahead and follow me on those. You can stay up to date with what it is I'm doing and working on. If there's any sort of like news updates or anything, then I will go ahead and post that stuff up there. I think that's it for tonight, guys. I don't have too much else. I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, good Friday, and a good weekend. I hope that you are all well. Take care out there. A weekly friendly reminder: Black Lives Matter, and keep fighting the good fight, guys. It's rough out there, but you know, no good change comes easily. And let's see, that's it. That's all I got. So until next week, stay safe, be good, and take care of one another. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.